Part 3. A Blast from the Past. In the previous episode, Part 2, Killer 1, we saw Jack hunting his father's killers, and after finding the first one, he dealt with him in no uncertain terms. Then, after he was buried in the Port Maria Cemetery, the body of Tony Weatherspoon, one of the so-called Tivoli Garden contract killers, was blown to pieces without a trace. Part 3 is a continuation of Jack's actions in the arts and applied science of vigilantism as he hunts down his father's other killer. But yes, he will be mystified by a blast from the past, Killer 2 Tommy Ebanks. This episode will show Jack moving further on the warpath, hunting his father's other killer, and after finding him, he will also receive the ultimate punishment, and after burial, he will be blown to smithereens as well. Watch until the end and enjoy another episode of the Jamaican Vigilante killer at his best. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by YouTube's community guidelines. Now, the nearer Jack gets to the man who ordered the killing of his father, the closer he gets to the precipice that could end his mission and his life, and also to the truth about the organizational structure and the culture of the Jamaican underworld drug syndicate. Jack was now staring into a wilderness of mirrors, but his action and reflection will cast manifold shadows on the drug use, dealers, and sellers in Jamaica. Delightful episodes of intrigue and Mossad-like operations, developed in Jamaica by a Jamaican vigilante mastermind in the retribution business. Thursday, the 20th of March 2011, was an unusual day in the life of Jack Collingwood. It was now 3 months that Jack was released from prison. It was about 7:30 a.m. that morning that Mother Alice called Jack while he was still in bed, keeping warm under the sheets from the cool mountain breeze. It was cold, wet, and the air was dry, and it felt like New York in winter. Mother Alice, in a stern, strong, demanding, and strict voice, said, "Jack, this is Donna's mother. I am calling you to advise you of a few things." Now, her words were not really fighting words, dogmatic phrases, or expressions, but she was speaking in a strange, psychologically convoluted tone, which seemed extremely complex and difficult to follow, and even had a bit of digression as well, but was bordering on those vehicles of expression and communication. Jack's mind started picturing various scenarios why her voice was so different from the usual calm and balanced voice of his girlfriend's mother. Her voice was strange, even to a psychologically astute person like Jack. Yet he kept cool and calm, with a controlled and respectful voice. "Number 1, she said, "Donna is asking that you go to the store and buy her some sweet, some salty, and some dairy-rich foods, and something with a sour flavor, along with ice cream, dark chocolate, and fruits. Secondly, please, and I mean please, do not call me Mother Alice any more." Jack was silent and flustered for a while. He thought Donna's mother was angry with him for something he was not aware of. And so she continued, "Jack, are you still there?" Jack softly replied, "Yes, Mother, I am still on the phone with you." "So, Mother, what should I call you?" Jack questioned. Mother Alice responded, "As of today, call me Grandma Alice, because I am going to be a grandmother and you are going to be a father. And please come and spend some time with your family, because she is having morning sickness. And finally, congratulations and welcome again to the family." Then Mother Alice started laughing, then brilliantly added, "Sorry, my son-in-law, I had to make it sound like there is a problem. Your family needs you, but get those things for her first." Jack could only say, "Wow, you got me there, Mama." "I will be there in 1 hour, Grandma Alice," as they both laughed together in unison. Jack hastened to his little Donna, after procuring the things on the list for her. For several weeks before that, Jack traveled several times on bus number 63 from Kingston to Spanish Town, as he observed and studied the habits and the character of the driver. And indeed the driver was always Tommy Ebanks. Jack visited Michael at the prison 2 times during that time to update him about the mission. Michael advised Jack that he could use his truck that was parked at his aunt's house in the garage. He just needed to get the battery charged and get it legal on the road. That was another good piece of news for Jack, who did not want to buy a motor vehicle in his name. 2 weeks before, Jack had rented a Ninja motorcycle with headgear and matching gloves and followed Tommy to his house, but kept his distance to avoid any suspicion. After Tommy drove through his automatic gate, Jack quietly cruised past and went to the other end of the city and took another road back to the causeway into Kingston and then back to his house in St. Mary. The following day, after Tommy had gone to work, Jack again visited and scouted the area to accentuate his plans. His observation was imperative to ensure success of his upcoming mission. Jack kept his beard growing, because he needed a disguise to ensure that he was not recognized by Tommy, whom he had seen at Tony's funeral several months before. Mr. Biggs had advised Tommy Ebanks a few weeks earlier that he was removing him from his bus driving duties to be the manager of his soon-to-be-finished drugs factory in St. Thomas. And this St. Thomas factory would focus mostly on manufacturing crystal methamphetamine by using ingredients from China and North Korea, because this magic formula was now the new user's choice for getting high, sky high. Moreover, the company had chosen him to lead this new venture in St. Thomas. That night, after the observation parade, Jack went to visit a friend and confidant of Michael, who was living in Portmore, about a mile away from Tommy's place. Gloria Westminster once worked for Mr. Biggs as a call girl, and she knew many of Mr. Biggs' friends in the organization. Michael had informed Jack that Gloria was more than a friend, and she could fill him in on some basic information about Tommy. She was also one of Michael's mistresses, who has 2 children for him. Gloria was expecting Jack, because he had called her to confirm the visit, and that he could come over that night about 8 p.m. Jack got to her house at 7:30 p.m., lingered for a while before knocking on her door, and after visiting at 8 p.m., they talked for about 2 hours about various things and time. Jack was enlightened that 2 of her 4 children actually belonged to his friend, Michael. Gloria's first child by another father was older and was at boarding high school in Kingston. The last one belonged to her boyfriend, who was a mason and who was living at the house with her, but the house belonged to Gloria that Michael had bought for her from his drugs money many years ago. Gloria advised Jack that her boyfriend was working in Westmoreland on the western end of the island in the construction business and would be back in 2 weeks' time. After a late dinner of curried chicken and rice and peas with lots of vegetables and orange juice and water on the side, Gloria encouraged Jack to stay until the morning because it was too late to travel back on a bike, and any friend of Michael's was her friend too. Reluctantly, Jack agreed to stay. Gloria arranged the bed for her 3 children and fixed a small bed beside her queen-size bed in her room for Jack to sleep. Jack went to sleep. But, being in this strange house and strange bed, he, as it were, slept with one eye open and one ear closed. When Jack got undressed that night, he put all his clothes into one heap on the floor. This was due to the fact that as a boy, his father advised him that before he is married, if he should visit and sleep over at a woman's house, he should not hang his clothes up, but rather, he should put them in one heap on the floor, whereby he can grab them fast in case of an emergency. About 3 o'clock in the early morning, a key was inserted into the door, but the door was bolted from the inside by Gloria. Jack heard the noise outside and asked Gloria who was at the door, but lo and behold, it was her boyfriend who was supposed to be at work on the western end of the island. Being panic-stricken, Gloria was flustered, worried, and troubled, not knowing how to explain to her boyfriend about the strange new man in the house. While they were inside trying to see what should be done, the boyfriend was outside cussing, knocking, and carrying on in a drunken and disgruntled state. Jack grabbed his clothes and started putting them on in a rush. Luckily, during the day, JPS Jamaica Public Service had cut the light off because of non-payment of the light bill. Therefore, the vicinity of the house during the night was in darkness. As a result of the locked door, the boyfriend shouted as he knocked, "Open the door! Open this goddamn door!" Gloria hastily opened the back door, and Jack went out. He turned to the right toward the road, leading to the bike that was parked further down the road. The boyfriend had gone to the left side of the house to ensure that no one was coming out the back door. But by then Jack was gone like lightning in the wee hours of the night to his home in Devon Pen, a few miles from Castleton in St. Mary. Jack was destined to be the punisher-in-chief of all top-tier drug dealers and drug runners in Jamaica. But his mission would not be smooth and peaceful. Indeed, there would be bumps and rocky roads ahead. Now, most houses in Portmore Spanish Town were built on flat lands, but a few owners were lucky to have theirs on a hill overlooking the vast expanse of the beautiful city of Portmore and the surrounding areas. Even Sir Cramtel, the Slackness DJ King, and his Portmore empire are located in Portmore St. Catherine. Tommy was one of these fortunate fellows. His house was quite pricey, which had a 2-car garage and a covered area where he parked the company's bus. Tommy Ebanks was a tall, dark and swarthy ugly fellow, with black bushy eyebrows, thinning black hair, and dark glowing eyes which seemed to stare right through people. He was a killer personified in all his ways. Tommy was driving bus for Mr. Biggs for more than 12 years now, after the mistaken identity killing of Jack's father and another bank personal in Kingston. Moreover, he and his friend Tony had decided that they were tired of the same old grind, so they requested of Mr. Biggs to move them to another department, and so they were placed in the transportation department of the syndicated company. But that was several years ago, and now Tony was dead. Incidentally, Mr. Biggs always has a plan or two up his sleeves. Because of the heat and killing of many drug dealers on the high seas by the American government, Biggs decided that he would produce his own products, and he would build a large facility, and Tommy would be the underboss of this synthetic drug production center in St. Thomas, on the far eastern end of Jamaica. This new factory would be a primary driver of fentanyl and crystal amphetamine, which was the delight of many users, near and abroad. And that would bypass the middlemen in South America. This double-edged production sword would do justice to the monetary issue of the Biggs enterprise. Mr. Biggs, who was a forward thinker, realized that the one who controls the production and the shipment apparatus would control a greater share of the trade and the profit. And in this desert of conflicting loyalties lies the possibility of greater profits. And there lies 1,000 knowledge of truth and successful possibilities if the drugs were produced in Jamaica. And indeed, because of Tommy's managerial and leadership skills, he was voted to push the products forward for the organization. He would oversee much of that operation, with armed enforcers to protect the drug lab, trafficking routes, and sales operations. This synthetic opioid would be far more potent than heroin and could be sold cheaper as well, so that this new venture would be a win-win venture for the organization. So, truly indeed, Biggs was trying to outsmart the DEA, the FBI, and the CIA, and other drug enforcement agencies, and after discussions with his close captains, they decided on this clever move. But today, like creatures of habit, Tommy usually stopped at a bar every Wednesday and Friday evenings to have a drink of red stripe beer with some of his other bus-driving friends, most from his company, before going home. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, he goes to the gym on Constant Spring Road for 2 hours to work out before going home. However, Jack was on his case, like flies on dead meat. But whether he was working or not, the bus was under his care and watchful eyes, so that when he is off duty, the bus would be parked in the garage at his house. But as Tommy drove his bus this evening, the bus was just gliding through the bright moonlight and riding with the rhythm of the wind and the tropical atmosphere. While traveling on the regular route on the bus earlier in the day, Jack had overheard Tommy assuring someone on the other end of the phone that he was getting off duty at 8 p.m., and after that he would drive over and spend an hour with that unidentified person. Jack was sure that this was indeed the night to make his deadly move. It was 5 p.m. in the evening when Jack got off the bus in Spanish Town Bus Centre. By mathematical calculations, The metrics of timing would show that Tommy would have just enough time to make another trip into Kingston and back before going home. But would he make it on time due to the rush hour traffic? This did not bother Jack, because he had all the time in the world. Jack's truck was parked on the street nearby, where he hopped in and drove further up the road. Weekends were fascinating times for partygoers in Kingston, Jamaica, and Mr. Big's nightclubs were always packed, with music, pretty ladies, and an occasional free drink between the hours of 12 and 1 o'clock in the mornings. And that 1 hour of free drinks was called the happy hour time, and anybody who was anybody in Mr. Big's organization could be found at these parties. Yet one can rest assured that Jack will visit Mr. Big's nightclubs in Kingston one of these days to be used as his happy hunting ground when searching for other movers and shakers in the Big's enterprise business. Now, it was a typical Saturday afternoon in Kingston, Jamaica, where, after the Friday night party life was raging during the previous night, and where alcoholic beverages were flowing like gushes of water from the Dunn's River Fall in Ocho Rios, St. Anne, Jamaica, West as Indies. But today, Saturday, was dedicated to Tommy Ebanks. Today was Tommy's lucky day. Tommy's name came up for judgment. Jack called Donna to see how she was, and he assured her that he was in Spanish Town on business and would be home later, and would call her then. Jack went to the Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, not far from the bus center, where he ordered a large serving of original chicken with boiled corn, other trimmings, and cheesecake dessert with cranberry juice. After eating his KFC, he bought a newspaper and drove to a cozy area to read the Jamaican Observer. It was 6:30 p.m. that Jack decided to drive into Portmore to do some final planning for the occasion. Jack drove past Tommy's house to see if he was home as yet, but he was not. Too early, Jack must to himself. Jack then drove further up the road and parked his truck half a mile away from Tommy's house in the backlands of Portmore. He retrieved a few items from his duffel bag and walked for a while. He then took a taxi that drove past Tommy's house. Tommy's bus was there. He was finally home. Jack got off at the corner store down the road from Tommy's house and bought a few small items while keeping an eye on Tommy's house up the road. Within 10 minutes, Tommy's black Toyota drove through the gate and speeded down the road, past the corner store where Jack was eating chicken patties, ice cream, and drinking Jamaican old-time ginger beer. These pastime Jamaican delicacies were delightful snacks for him who was separated from them for many years while in prison. After several minutes, when the road was empty, Jack walked up the road toward Tommy's house. The week before, Jack had tested a new device on Tommy's gate that he had gotten from the Army-Navy store in Kingston. These devices could open any automatic gate mechanisms as long as the gates were made in America, Europe, or China. When it was tested, it worked like a charm. Jack opened the gate and entered just like it was his own property, his yard. Jack went to the door, knocked, and listened for voices inside, but as his contact had informed him in Portmore that he lived alone, and only on Wednesdays a helper would come over to clean, wash, and cook for him. Jack also had a bunch of universal keys that could open any dead bolt locks that were made in China, America, or Europe. After trying the American and the European set of keys, he tried the one from China, and the main door was opened at last. Jack entered the house and closed the door behind him like it was his own home. And Jack knew that the line between success and failure is a very thin line, but it is a line that must be attempted without fear or psychological pressure to overcome and ensure success. Then, two ugly black Doberman dogs grabbed him and knocked him to the ground. They bit him in his chest, but his vest protected his intestines. They bit his foot, but his long boots protected his ankle. They bit his hands, but he managed to kick one in the mouth and shot the other in the head. He pulled his long army-style knife and stabbed the other one in the throat. They were both dead. Jack was aware that loyalty can be purchased, but not from those two killer dogs that were trained to kill intruders. He pulled their bodies in a back room and cleaned up the blood in the passage. Then he went into the bathroom where he found a bottle of hydrogen peroxide that he poured on the bites. He then poured some Jamaican white rum from a locker in the bathroom, and there was also a tube of triple antibiotic cream that he applied to the affected areas after cleaning the wounds. Luckily the bites were not serious or lethal, which could cause rabies, which is a highly deadly, lethal viral disease that can be transmitted especially from carnivores, including affected dogs. The virus can be transmitted in the saliva either by the bite of an infected animal or by contact through the mucous membranes or breaks in the skin. Once within the body, the virus attacks the central nervous system. Symptoms may develop 10 to 30 days after exposure, and they usually begin with depression, restlessness, fatigue, and fever. It is said that once the symptoms of rabies appear, no treatment of the disease is possible, someone once pointed out. Therefore, Jack will visit his doctor in Kingston as soon as he can. Jack took a t-shirt from the shower curtain line, tore off a piece and wrapped it around his hand. Jack then sat down in the dark in a soft lazy-boy chair in one corner of the living room, waiting, just waiting. It was 10:48 p.m., and as Jack was dozing off in the chair, he heard a car driving up to the gate. Then Jack heard the car driving into the garage. Tommy got out, closed the door, and opened the door to his house. He shouted, "Come here, Sheba! Come here, Lion!" But there were no answers from the faithful dogs. Tommy tried turning on the lights, but Jack had already disabled the lights in the living room. Tommy then shouted, "What the hell is going on?" From out of the corner of the room, Jack said,
"Sit your ass down, let me tell you what. Who you? A joke thing you the pawn in my house. Me gone! I wanna good have made you wanna give in up one.
"Where are my dogs?" Then Jack quipped to Tommy,
Dead. Both dead. Just like you will obey him in a few minutes.
"You are certainly enjoying this, aren't you?" Tommy added. Tommy insisted further.
So what you want?
Tommy's voice carried an edge of command and authority, projecting as if he knew that sometimes mercy is more important than violence. Jack pointed his handgun Susie at Tommy's stomach. The silencer, attached to the semi-automatic long-barreled handgun, was shining and glistening in the moonlight glare coming through the window. Jack responded to his question.
"I am here to determine your fate, and I come highly recommended by your late friend and partner in crime, Tony Witherspoon."
Don't piss me off, or you hold me hostage in my own house.
Let me explain something to you. My name is Jack Collingwood. 15 and a half years ago, you and your killing machine friend Tony killed my father. Now, I am here to fix that. I come for justice, restorative justice. But tell me something. How can a killer like you find peace? You know something, Tommy? Sometimes we don't have a choice. But you had a choice then, and I have a choice now. I spent 15 years in jail for you, but now you have to repay me for that time.
Realizing the seriousness in Jack's voice, Tommy softly said, "My friend Jack, whatever your name is, I believe you have come to the wrong house, and you have got the wrong man. Friend, your friend, you are not my friend. You are a killer personified. So don't call me your friend." Jack continued in the same frame of thought. "Wrong man, my foot. You are not the wrong man. That was what Tony also told. You are Tommy Ebanks. You and Tony, whom I have already killed, you both killed my father and ran into a waiting getaway car after killing him. Then you had the audacity to bring flowers to his funeral, telling my mother that you are from America and you are saddened to have heard about the killing of her husband." Tommy then reasoned, "So, are the one who killed Tony? Can you imagine the scene? Picture the shock and awe and surprise. The hunter had now become the hunted. Yes, I am, and I am here for you as well. I am the destroying angel." Tommy, realizing the imminent danger that he was in, sprang from the sofa toward Jack as fast as a dangerous polecat and jumped down at Jack. Jack fired one shoot which only grazed Tommy's shoulder. Tommy was fast, very fast and agile. Then Tommy kicked the gun out of Jack's hand and knocked him to the ground. Tommy then grabbed Jack and encircled his neck with his left arm and hooked his hand together on his left shoulder. Then he squeezed his neck just below the jaw between his biceps and forearm, clamping down Jack's carotid arteries, trying to induce a swift loss of consciousness. Jack realized that he could not change the odds to favor himself greatly, but he certainly could lessen the odds against him in a marked way. But Jack, who was also proficient in karate maneuvers, wriggled himself out of the dilemma. Tommy picked up Jack's pistol and aimed the long barrel perfectly level, perfectly still at his target's chest, and said, "If you make a move, I will kill you where you stand. But before I kill you, let me explain something to you. I am a natural-born killer, and I don't give a shit, not a single shit, not a single solitary piece of shit, about you or your old man, although we were mistaken about him. We thought he was your Uncle Jerry. But I don't have any regrets. That was what I did for a living then. That is how I bought this house, by killing people! Now, I can't wave a magic wand and bring back your father again. But you breaking into my house like this and killing my dogs, you are cunning enough to kill Tony, kill my dogs, and is now trying to kill me. But you are too stupid to realize who you are up against. So, you will die like a dog tonight because you are so rash and impulsive. But, like so many other boasters, sometimes their overconfidence becomes their stupidity. So, Tommy continued rhetorically, do you know what I am going to do to you? I am going to break your fingers, finger by finger, then I am going to break your ribs. Rib by rib, you knuckle-headed fool. Jack shifted his body, and Tommy said, if you make another stinking move again, I will blow your brains out. Actually, Tommy continued, your action is beyond rude. It is impolite, discourteous, uncouth, offensive, and disgraceful. Well, it is your choice, your destiny, and your funeral. Jack, trying to gain some leverage time, interjected, that certainly is a colorful story, but that's not the way I see it. Indeed, these were critical moments for Jack, and timing was everything to make the right move. Too early or too late would be fateful for him. However, rational thoughts would not provide a realistic guide for this occasion. He had to calculate his opponent's actions by using communicative psychology and mental tactics. Tommy then said, oh, by the way, I am also a karate expert, and I am not going to kill you by shooting you. I will kick you soft until you die, then I will cut your throat and burn your body in my car, and the insurance company will pay me for it. Jack now realized that the penalty for underestimating his enemy's strength and capability is higher than the penalty for overestimating his strength and ability. But he had to do something fast, real fast, otherwise his goose will be cooked. Defensively and psychologically, Jack responded, well, you are breaking my heart, you piece of shit. You are so far removed from logic and reality that it is clear to me that you are a clear and present danger to the people of Jamaica. You must understand that reputation is something that is hard to earn, and you have earned it, but it is also easy to lose. You are nothing but a cooperate prostitute, doing the will of your boss, Mr. Bigman. Sucker, this is not a game or a popularity contest. There will be fire on your mountain tonight, so fire fay you. Your ultimate aim was to create wanton violence, murder, and destruction in the name of monetary gain, and these are matters of undeniable facts. Do you agree with that assessment, fool you stinking polecat? Instantly, Jack's mind flashed to Mahatma Gandhi, who asserted that one should harbor no anger, but suffer the anger of the opponent, and refused to return the assaults of the opponent. But Jack deleted that thought from his mind and instead settled on another line by Gandhi. Jack mumbled to himself, action is my domain. Tommy, Jack said instantly, again, this is not a Magnum dance contest, a game or a popularity contest. My task is to kill you, and I mean to eliminate you at all cost, and that is what I will do to you. Further, Tommy, the awful truth of the matter is that you have spread over the skies of your life and over other people's life disaster and destruction in order to satisfy the greedy needs of your boss, Mr. Biggs, and his syndicate family empire. Do you know what happened to Port Royal in 1692? It was destroyed by an earthquake because it was a violent city and the enclave for all kinds of evil encouraged by the buccaneers. What I am saying to you is that God's grace will not be extended to you any longer. Sooner than later, retribution will take its full course. You see, Tommy, no sin shall go unpunished. And that's why I am here to determine your faith, and I come highly recommended by your partner in crime, Tony, your former sidekick and killing machine friend. Tommy's anger was bubbling over, and could be heard and seen in his emotions and actions, which gave Jack the psychological leverage. So Jack continued, "This might be too hard for a blunt instrument like you to understand, but I can also see that you are angry, so let me tell you something about anger. Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it stands than to anything on which it is poured." Tommy flashed back. "Away with that philosophical bullshit. Who the hell do you think you are? Sigmund Freud, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, or Rumpelstiltskin? Well, let me tell you something else, you little frog face. You can't shake hands with a clenched fist while sitting on the floor. By the way," Tommy hastily said, "they also call me the Two-Knife Kid, and that's what I will use to cut your thin-skinned throat. These knives," as he revealed the knives to Jack that were strapped to his side. Suddenly, Tommy's eyes, unblinking, unmoving, displaying all the evil intentions of a deadly cobra toward an evening meal of an unsuspecting rat, fired 2 quick shots into Jack's stomach. But Jack's vest protected him again from instant death. Jack rolled over with a fast karate fly-side blade kick, directed toward Tommy's legs and chest, and knocked Tommy off his feet. The gun fell out of Tommy's hand. In response, from the floor, Tommy slammed a kung fu type hitting and kicking technique that emphasized power and strength and kicked Jack in the chest. Then Jack hand blocked the second wave of kicks by using a fluid dance-like movement called kata and punched him in his face. Immediately, Tommy jumped and spins and landed a left kick into the target area of Jack's face. Then Jack fell to the ground. Tommy jumped down on Jack with a bent wrist lock of Jack's left hand, but Jack, who was stronger and taller, wiled a right backhand, blow along with a counter kick to Tommy's chin. But Tommy managed to use a combination of kung fu techniques, got away and grabbed Jack in the neck. Tommy pulled one knife at Jack and cut him on the hand and punched him in the face. Right slammed him in his balls and knocked him in his kidney area. At this juncture, Jack employed a relaxation and breathing technique that he had learned to use in critical situations such as this one. Jack then pushed him off from on top of him, got up, broke a chair foot, and knocked the knife out of Tommy's hand. The knife flew out through the open window. Jack then realized that Tommy was indeed a black belt karate expert who could downsize any Goliath stature of a man, even a man like Jack. Both opponents had met their match, and both were in top physical forms. Jack realized that he had to adapt, improvise, and overcome this little David of a man. Jack thought to himself, "This encounter is going to get worse before it gets better." And, as if Tommy was reading Jack's thoughts, he burst out, "Sucker, you can't fly so close to the sun and not have your skin burnt." Nevertheless, despite expressing traditional adherence to ancient rules in the martial arts defensive and offensive scheme, they both had to adapt to the new situations and improvise to save their lives. Tommy again pranced on Jack and threw him to the floor. Tommy then pulled the second knife, kneeled down on top of Jack, and was about to stab Jack in the chest when Jack pulled his short-barrel pistol from his ankle and shot him twice in the heart at point-blank range. Tommy, in disbelief, burst out, "Damn it, I am shot!" Jack, who was exhausted and breathing heavily, unflinchingly responded, "Yea, I know, there are 3 kinds of people who usually get shot and killed: thieves, killers, and robbers." But when the dust finally settled, and after a few convulsive coughs and spasms, with blood mixed with food and water coming through his mouth, Tommy leaned forward and was about to fall on Jack, when Jack pushed Tommy off of him, got up and said, "You know, Tommy, you must always realize that a boaster will always be beaten. Fundamentally, I've learned that if there is no guilt, there is no glory, and I've learned that the person with big dreams is more powerful than the one with all the facts. And I've also learned that any activity becomes creative when you try to do it better than you did it before. And absolutely not. One cannot reason with a cold-blooded killer like you. You were born to be a killer. You lived the life of a cold-blooded killer, and you are now dying as a killer. Therefore, when one goes out to kill someone like you, he must only have killing on his mind. Thank you for today's object lessons anyhow. I will take them under advisement and consideration. Jack now realized that crises like this one can bring unforeseen circumstances, or better yet, helps to streamline and caution future actions. Jack then picked up Susie from the floor and emptied the clip into Tommy's face and chest. His face was torn to pieces, and he was dead stiff, stone dead. Jack now realized that if he wants to continue to roll with the big dogs, he will have to stop pissing like puppies. Indeed, Tommy had enlightened and brightens his horizon. Now he will take nothing for granted. He will focus on his one-shot, one-kill decision in the future. Jack turned on one light and ensured that there was nothing of his personal effects on the floor. He also removed all evidence of his shoes marks and other possible incriminating evidences. Jack carried water and bleach from the bathroom and watered down everything that could tie him to the struggle and the killing. He was his own one-man clean-up crew. Jack then carried the two dogs' bodies and placed them beside their master in the living room, and said, "You live together, you die together, you deserve each other." Then he went into the master bedroom, and to his amazement, on the wall he saw evidences indicating that Tommy was not a novice. He was indeed an agile, black belt proficient karate expert. In a closet there were various kinds of guns and ammunitions, gadgets, cameras, radio and telephone detonators, and cell phones, along with a briefcase with Jamaican and US currency. Jack retrieved the briefcase from the comfort of the closet and headed out the front door, along with cell phones, gadgets that will be helpful later. As he walked, he murmured to himself, "They say that power corrupts, but they did not say how. But now I know. Tommy, Mr. Biggs, corrupted you and all the others that work for him. This money is not yours, my friend, it is the people's money, and I represent the people." As Jack reached the outside of the house, he saw that rain was now slowly falling, and music was playing at a birthday party a few houses away. He closed the door behind him, went down the path, through the gate, and into the night, walking as if he were a homeless person, with the briefcase in a black garbage bag, while hiding his face with his cap from oncoming cars as he hurried to his truck distance away. When Jack reached the door of his truck, suddenly he started to regurgitate. Tommy had certainly laid down a beating on him. The earlier meals that Jack had, along with the happenings at the house, caused an imbalance in his digestive system which upset his stomach, and he expelled the content of his belly on the ground beside the truck. Then, after recovering from that ordeal, he drank some spring water from his water bottle. He started the truck engine and slowly drove away to avoid any suspicion. But as soon as he was far removed from the area, he tore through the highway into the countryside in the moonlit night. As he drove, he kept his eyes on the road behind him to observe if he has been followed. But he kept the accelerator pedaling near the floor and touching the brake pedal only when absolutely necessary. As he drove, he murmured to himself, "So few jobs accomplished, and so many unaccomplished jobs ahead." When Jack reached the turn-off road to his house, he did not turn off. Instead, he continued another 2 miles to ensure that he was not being followed. He later turned around and headed for his house in the Dale of Devon Pen. It was 12:15 a.m. when Jack finally reached home. Jack had his usual hot Milo with condensed milk, crackers, and peanut butter before going to bed. It was a close call with Tommy, a blast from the past for Jack, but he had no intention to stop now. No, there was no stopping Jack now. Friday, the 15th of April, 2006, at 8 a.m., Jack went to the barber shop. Or even to Donna. He told Donna that he would keep a low profile to reflect on life and things. Donna understood and agreed that she would give him his space, even though she knew that there was something that he would tell her later when they are alone. Jack spent the other part of the day mostly playing outdoors with the younger children to bond with them and keep them safe, including little Jack, the young smart Alex, his brother's son, Jackie. However, Jack was in reality acting as a lookout man for the family, even though they did not know these facts. Later in the night, Jack counted the money gotten from Tommy's house, and between the US currency and the Jamaican money, it was over $10 million. At 7 a.m. the following morning, Jack turned into TVJ for the 7 o'clock morning news forecast. And there it was. The news flash came over the TV about the brutal killing of a man and his dogs a few days ago. But there was no intelligence in the news of anybody knowing anything about the killing or who did the killings. Apparently, Tommy did not answer his telephone and did not show up for work the following days, after his birthday time off was over, so the bus company sent someone over along with the police to see what was happening. That was how they discovered his body. The crime scene was processed and the body removed to the morgue, and investigations continues, the news concluded. At the end of the newscast, Jack turned off the television. After putting away the money taken from Tommy's house, he then went back to bed, feeling a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment. Tommy's end was written in silence. Jack decided that he would keep away from Kingston, Spanish Town, and their environs for a while, but there was a burden on his heart. He did not know when or where Tommy's funeral would be held. However, one evening, about a week later, after the 7 p.m. news on TVJ, as per usual, they had the death information of several persons that had recently died, and lo and behold, Tommy Ebanks was one of them. The name of the funeral home was mentioned, along with the name of the church where the body would be churched, and the set date as well. The streets were practically empty. It was Sunday morning. The hustle and the bustle of Kingston on a Friday or a Saturday were drastically different from today's Sunday. Some folks were now home getting ready for church. Some came in the early hours of the morning from Saturday night parties and were sleeping out their intoxicated drunkenness, while others were feeling happy to be home with families and were taking it easy on a Sunday morning. Meanwhile, the big and elaborate funeral service for Tommy at the huge Roman Catholic Church on Old Hope Road in Kingston was getting ready to be in progress, with paid singers, special organ music, reflection, and poetry. Jack thought, many of Tommy's friends and his syndicate colleagues will be there at the graveside for his send-off. Jack was now ready to travel the 10 miles journey from Old Hope Road to the final resting place for the late, cocky, self-centered and boastful Tommy the Karate Killer. But Jack was at ease with himself, because he had 5 more days on this white Honda Accord rental car that he got in Kingston on Marcus Garvey Drive. Jack's time today was fully dedicated to Tommy, without any shadow of turning. Indeed, today was dedicated to the man who almost beat him to a pulp and cut his throat at his den in Portmore, St. Catherine. Jamaica is one of the many countries in the world that is elaborate in the celebration of the death of a person, especially if that person is wealthy or had wealthy friends. Tommy's funeral would be no exception. He had Mr. Biggs and all his compadres to provide an elaborate send-off for him. Like birth and marriage, death seems universally to be regarded as a socially important occasion, with ceremonies that are related to the family's religious beliefs in which they are practiced. In many Western cultures, the wearing of black is the norm, and an undertaker is contracted to deal with the handling and burial of the dead. This would include the removal of the body of the deceased from the place of death or from the hospital, embalming, prepare the body for burial, provide rooms at the parlor where mourners can meet and greet, and sometimes where a service may be held, and make the burial arrangements. But now, the cars, buses and vans got in the queue for the procession for the slow drive, with vehicle lights on and several police officers in the lead, and on the side for a dignified trip for Mr. Big Soldier's burial. The entire trip to Dovecot was without any unusual event. They got to the cemetery, and the police officers directed how the cars should be parked with ease of access for emergency vehicles just in case it was needed. But, as Jack parked his car and started walking toward the gravesite with his 2 elaborate bouquets of flowers, his heart skipped a beat because he realized that there was a security checkpoint nearer to the gravesite. Those flowers and roses that he was carrying were very expensive and had a wide color range with unique fragrances that maintain their freshness long after other flowers have faded. At least, that's the best Jack could do now for Tommy, the man who beat him up black and blue. The security was checking the flowers being brought by the attendees to the burial because of previous suspicions. Suddenly, a taxicab stopped right at his feet. And, as fate and luck would have it, there came his 2 run-head acquaintances, who, after greeting Jack, offered to help carry the flowers to the burial spot. Jack did not hesitate, but handed over the floral arrangements to them. When they got to the checkpoint, they were allowed to pass without being checked because they were friends of Tommy and were previous drug dealers and killing stalwarts with the big syndicate. At the gravesite, Jack took the 2 floral arrangements and was ready for the last words from the burial official. But as Jack waited and was singing songs and choruses along with the others at the graveside, he reflected on the encounter with Tommy and the pain that Tommy had inflicted on him just weeks ago. He also remembered the song by one American black singer which says, "No pain, no gain, no pain, no gain." He could not quite remember the singer's name, but maybe it was Gloria Gaynor, the black American singer. He smiled and nodded to the affirmation of his thought, because he could have been the dead one instead of Tommy. He will have to be more careful next time, because that experience was too close for comfort. Right after the final scripture was read and the last words were spoken, the pastor affirmed, "Ashes to ashes and dust to dust." Then flowers, money, and other gifts were placed on the coffin, and some were thrown into the grave. During that opportune time, Jack had a floral arrangement in each hand and squeezed the starter on the watches and slipped the flowers onto the top of the coffin. The 2 silent, destroying little angels were clicking softly and destined to ensure a grand blast for the dead. Therefore, after the tradesmen and masons were finished, their touches to the cover of the grave and headstone, along with Jack, many attendees headed to their transportation for their exit from the Dovecot Cemetery. Then a cargo van pulled up with several dozen boxes of various kinds of foods, all provided by the big man himself, Mr. Biggs, food for those who would linger for a little while longer at the graveside. And so, unfortunately, instead of leaving the cemetery, many of Tommy's friends and drug colleagues were eating and drinking on or near Tommy's grave. There was loud music and crying and threats to the one who killed Tommy and his dogs. He drove to a late-night grocery store about a mile from Dovecot Cemetery, where he bought a bottle of cranberry juice, 2 chicken patties, and a newspaper, as he eats, drank, read, and waited for the explosion at the cemetery. As expected, at 10 p.m. sharp, the cemetery was rocked by powerful explosions that uprooted the coffin and blown the coffin and the dead body into fragments, blown them to smithereens. As Jack doubled back to the spot to see his handiwork against the drug dealers, he thought out loud, that must be the meaning when they say, "Let the dead bury the dead." Now we are progressing toward the big man, Jack mussed to himself. The next big fish to fry would be the big man himself, Mr. Biggs, a.k.a. Mr. Big Man, the head of the dirty drug stream in Kingston, Jamaica. He then drove away to a hotel in New Kingston where he had made a reservation to stay for 2 nights. There he could get some well-needed rest for a few days. 2 days later he went home to the foothills of the Blue Mountains in St. Mary, Jamaica, West Indies.